Your soulmate will find you through God. Have you ever wondered if someone, somewhere, is praying for the same thing you're praying for? Perhaps tonight, as you read these words, you've been carrying a quiet question in your heart. God, is there really someone meant for me? It's a question many people ask but few admit out loud. You've seen others find love. You've watched people build lives together. And sometimes, when the room is quiet and the world slows down, you find yourself asking God, will my story ever happen? If that's you today, this message is for you. God sees your heart. He knows every desire you've never spoken. He knows the prayers you've whispered through tears. And while you may not know who your future soulmate is, God already does. Psalm 139 reminds us that God knows us completely. Before a single day of our lives began, every one of them was written in His book. Think about that. If God knows every detail about your life, don't you think He also knows the person who will walk beside you through it? The truth is, your soulmate will not find you by accident. They will find you through God's perfect plan. Many people spend years searching for love in all the wrong places. They chase attention, confuse feelings with destiny, and mistake temporary connections for lifelong promises. But God's way is different. God doesn't simply bring two people together. He prepares them. He shapes their hearts. He teaches them patience. He strengthens their faith. And then, when the timing is right, He allows their paths to cross. You may not realize it, but while you're waiting, God is working. He's working on your character. He's teaching you lessons that will help you become a better partner one day. And at the same time, He may be doing the exact same thing in someone else's life. Imagine that. Somewhere in the world, there may be someone who has no idea who you are. They've never seen your face. They've never heard your voice. Yet God knows both of your stories. He knows the exact moment your lives will intersect. That's why you don't need to live in fear. You don't need to force relationships that constantly leave you exhausted and confused. What God has planned for you doesn't require manipulation. It requires trust. Isaiah 40 verse 31 says, "But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles." Waiting isn't weakness. Waiting is faith in action. Every day you choose to trust God instead of rushing ahead, you're saying, "Lord, I believe you know what's best for me." And that's a beautiful thing. Perhaps you've experienced heartbreak before. Maybe someone promised forever and left. Maybe you gave your heart to the wrong person and spent years trying to heal from the pain. If so, remember this. Your past is not your future. One disappointment cannot cancel God's promises. Just because someone walked away doesn't mean God has abandoned His plans for your life. In fact, sometimes the greatest evidence of God's love is the doors He closes. Think about the people who didn't stay. At the time, it hurt. You cried. You questioned God. But now, Looking back, can you see how some of those closed doors protected you? God can see what we cannot. He knows who will encourage your faith and who will distract you from it. He knows who will stand beside you during difficult seasons and who will leave when life becomes challenging. That's why trusting His timing matters. Your soulmate won't simply make your life happier. They will help you become more of the person God created you to be. Together, you'll pray. Together, you'll grow. Together, you'll learn to trust God through every season of life. Will there still be challenges? Of course. No relationship is perfect. But relationships built on God have a foundation that circumstances cannot easily destroy. So what should you do while you wait? Keep becoming who God created you to be. Spend time with Him. Read His Word. Pursue your purpose. Serve others. And stop putting your life on hold while waiting for someone else to arrive. Because your life isn't beginning when you meet your soulmate. Your life has already begun. And perhaps that's the lesson God wants you to learn during this season. One day, when your paths finally cross, you'll realize that God wasn't making you wait to punish you. He was making sure that when the moment arrived, both of you were ready. You'll look back at every unanswered prayer, every delay, and every moment of uncertainty and say, "Lord, thank you for knowing what I couldn't see." Until then, don't lose hope. The God who created the stars knows your name. The God who parted the sea knows your future. And the God who writes every chapter of your story knows exactly who belongs in it. So tonight, if your heart feels tired from waiting, place your future back into God's hands. You don't have to know when. You don't have to know how. You only need to know who is in control. Because if God has written love into your story, nothing can take it away. At the right time. In the right place. According to His perfect will. Your soulmate will find you, not by chance, but through the hands of a God who has never made a mistake. And when that day comes, you'll discover that heaven had been working behind the scenes all along. There is something comforting about knowing that God is never surprised. Nothing catches Him off guard. Not your mistakes. Not your fears. Not the years you've spent waiting. And certainly not the person He has chosen to walk beside you through life. Before you ever prayed for love, God already knew the desires of your heart. Before you ever wondered, "Will I find my soulmate?" He had already written every chapter of your story. That's why you can rest. You don't have to carry the burden of figuring everything out. Sometimes, we place so much pressure on ourselves. We ask, what if I never meet the right person? What if I miss my opportunity? What if God's plan is different from mine? But here's the beautiful truth. You cannot miss what God has planned for you. If God has ordained something for your life, no amount of distance, time, or circumstance can stop it from happening. Think about the story of Ruth. She wasn't searching for Boaz when God brought their paths together. She was simply being faithful where she was. And that's often how God works. He meets us in ordinary moments. A conversation. A new opportunity. A place we never expected to be. Suddenly, what seemed ordinary becomes extraordinary because God's hand was guiding us the entire time. Your future may look uncertain to you, but it is perfectly clear to God. He knows where you'll be 5 years from now. He knows the people you'll meet. He knows the prayers you'll pray. And He knows the exact moment your life will intersect with the person He has prepared for you. Until that day arrives, don't allow fear to steal your peace. Fear says, "You're running out of time." God says, "My timing is perfect." Fear says, "Everyone else is ahead of you." God says, "I am leading you on the path I chose for you." Fear says, "You'll always be alone." God says, "I will never leave you nor forsake you." The voice you listen to will determine the peace you experience. That's why it's important to stay close to God during seasons of waiting. Because the closer you are to Him, the easier it becomes to trust Him. And perhaps that's the greatest gift of waiting. Waiting teaches us that God is enough. It reminds us that our identity is not found in another person. You are not incomplete. You are not less valuable because you're still waiting. You are already loved by the one who created you. A relationship is a blessing. But Jesus is the foundation. Never reverse those roles. Because if you build your life around another person, disappointment will eventually come. But if you build your life around God, you'll have a foundation strong enough to withstand every storm. One day, you'll meet someone who appreciates the person God shaped you into during this season. They'll meet the version of you that learned patience. The version of you that discovered faith. The version of you that stopped chasing and started trusting. And in that moment, you'll realize something incredible. The waiting wasn't empty. It was preparation. Every tear had a purpose. Every delay had a lesson. Every unanswered prayer was leading you closer to God's perfect plan. So tonight, if your heart feels weary, pray this simple prayer. Lord, I trust you with my future. Help me to stop worrying about what I cannot control. Teach me to be faithful in this season, and remind me that your plans are always better than my own. Then leave the rest in His hands. Because the God who brought Ruth and Boaz together is still writing love stories today. He hasn't changed. And neither have His promises. Your soulmate is not beyond His reach. They are exactly where God knows they are. And when the time is right, He will do what only He can do. He will bring two stories together and turn them into one testimony of His faithfulness. Until then, keep walking with Him. Because sometimes, the greatest miracle isn't finding your soulmate. It's discovering that God was with you every step of the journey. Have you ever considered that while you're waiting for your soulmate, they may also be waiting for you? Perhaps tonight, somewhere in the world, someone is praying for the very things you've been asking God for. They may be asking for strength. They may be asking for wisdom. And without even realizing it, they may be praying for you. Isn't it amazing how God works? Two people. Two different stories. Two separate journeys. Yet one God, carefully guiding both lives toward a moment that has already been seen by heaven. This is why you must never mistake God's silence for His absence. Just because you cannot see Him working doesn't mean He has stopped. Some of God's greatest miracles begin quietly. A seed doesn't become a tree overnight. A sunrise doesn't happen in a single second. And God's plans rarely unfold all at once. They happen one step at a time. One lesson. One prayer. One season. And perhaps that's where you are right now, in the middle of a season that doesn't make sense yet. Maybe you've spent years asking God, "Why am I still waiting?" The answer may be simpler than you think. Because God is preparing both of you. He's teaching you how to trust. He's teaching them how to grow. He's healing parts of your heart that still need healing. And He may be doing the same in theirs. Because God is not interested in giving you a temporary blessing. He is interested in building something that will last. Too often, we focus on finding the right person while forgetting to become the right person. But God cares about both. He knows that a relationship built on faith requires two hearts that have learned to depend on Him. That's why this season matters. The prayers matter. The waiting matters. Even the difficult days matter. Romans 5 verses 3-4 says, "We also glory in our sufferings, because we know that suffering produces perseverance, perseverance, character, and character, hope." Notice the progression. God uses one season to prepare us for the next. Nothing is random. Nothing is wasted. Every experience in your life is becoming part of the testimony you'll one day share with others. Imagine meeting your soulmate years from now. Imagine sitting together and talking about everything God brought both of you through before your paths crossed. You'll tell them about the nights you almost gave up. They'll tell you about the prayers they prayed when they felt alone. And together, you'll realize that God was answering both of your prayers at the same time. That is the beauty of His timing. He doesn't just create moments. He creates meaning. Until then, don't become discouraged by what you don't have. Thank God for what He is doing right now. Thank Him for the growth. Thank Him for the protection. Thank Him for the blessings you haven't seen yet. Because one day, the chapter you're living in today will become the testimony you share tomorrow. You'll look back and say, "God knew exactly what He was doing." You'll understand why certain people left. You'll understand why certain doors remained closed. And you'll thank God for every delay that once felt disappointing. Because God's not yet is often preparing us for His better. So if you're listening to this tonight, remember these words. You are not forgotten. You are not behind. And you are not waiting alone. God is still with you. He is still working. And He is still writing your story. The person He has prepared for you may not know your name today, but God does. He knows where they are. He knows where you are. And He knows exactly how to bring two lives together at the perfect moment. So rest in that truth. Keep praying. Keep trusting. And keep walking with God. Because if your love story has been written by heaven, then no force on earth can stop it from coming to pass. And when the day finally arrives, you'll discover that your soulmate didn't simply find you. They found you through the hands of a faithful God who had been guiding both of your lives from the very beginning. And in that moment, you'll realize something beautiful. God was never making you wait. He was making sure that when love finally arrived, it would arrive exactly on time.